please welcome Jim Clymer, our vice presidential candidate for the Constitution Party.
Well, thank you. And first of all, let me extend my greetings to you on behalf of Virgil Goode, our presidential candidate. He regrets much that he cannot be here today because he had prior commitments on a campaign tour that he's up through Michigan and Ohio before he was aware of this. But so he's out there doing that, and he asked me to come in and fill in for him here today. So I'm here, and I am Jim Clymer. I hail from the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We got some Pennsylvania people here? Great! Now, I think it was James Carville who said that in his description of Pennsylvania, he described it as Philadelphia on one end, Pittsburgh on the other, and Alabama in between. Let me tell you, I'm from the Alabama part, not Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Let me just say a little bit about Virgil Goode. Virgil was, he served in the Army National Guard for 6 years. He served in the Virginia State Senate for 24 years, and he served in the U.S. House of Representatives for 12 years. And while he was in the U.S. House of Representatives, he was with Dr. P.A.U.L. and served with him on the Liberty Caucus there, very much an ally of Ron Paul. And, you know, unless lightning strikes, I know hope springs eternal in the human breast, and somehow that Dr. P.A.U.L. will be able to pull this out at the convention. But if it doesn't happen, if that doesn't happen, then I'm presenting to you Virgil Goode as the closest thing to Dr. P.A.U.L. And he would be the only one, and a lot of people can appreciate this, he would be the only veteran on the national ticket this fall for president, if Dr. P.A.U.L., of course, does not get on. But let me give you a few comments about what we're about, what this campaign is all about. First of all, as far as the Constitution Party's goal is to restore limited government, limited constitutional government as prescribed by our Constitution. I was actually here back in 1992, and there was a presidential candidate who was speaking on these very grounds who made the comment that our Constitution ought to be scrapped and be able to start all over again. Well, I'm here to tell you that our Constitution does not need to be scrapped. We have a wonderful document in the U.S. Constitution. We just need to live by it. We just need to abide by it and hold our elected officials to it. A few years ago, there was a survey taken among 339 colleges and universities across America questioning college students about the Constitution. And their lack of knowledge of the Constitution was just appalling. There was more than 1/4 of them could not even identify freedom of speech as being part of the First Amendment of the Constitution. More than three-fourths of them couldn't identify freedom of assembly and association and the right to petition government as part of the First Amendment. You know, I think that's changing. That survey was done, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And I think thanks in large part to the Liberty Movement and the Ron Paul revolution that is changing, and then more and more people are becoming aware of the Constitution. I think that's one of the greatest aspects of this, that people are now reading the Constitution. That document that was originally prepared so that the plowboy of Vermont and New Hampshire could read it and understand it. But we, for generations, were told that you had to have some special degree or something had to wear a black robe or something like that to understand it. But we know that's not true, that average people can understand it. It's a matter of reading it. Let me tell you what the Goode-Clymer administration would be about. What our agenda would be to restore constitutional government in the year 2013 and beyond. First of all, we would want to balance the budget now, not 11 years from now. Let me tell you that the Ryan plan, which is highly touted among so-called conservatives, actually would grow the budget from 3.6 trillion, which it is now, to 4.9 trillion over the next 10 years. And it would include $3.1 trillion in new deficits. So it doesn't really solve the problem at all. It kicks the can down the road a little further and hopes that somehow they'll resolve the problem at the end. Now, if we would just simply get our government back to doing what it's constitutionally authorized to do, we wouldn't have any problem in balancing the national budget. I mean, let's get rid of all these departments that have no constitutional authority behind them. The Department of Education, HUD, Interior. Let's get it back to what it's intended, what it's authorized to do, and we would have no problem in balancing the budget. The Ryan plan actually does not cut spending. It simply slows the growth of spending from that projected by the Dunkins. Let's get rid of foreign aid. Let's do it. Let's take care of America first. Why should we be spending our money all around the world to take care of everybody else when we're lacking here at home? The other area that is very important to us, a second area I should say, is to protect all innocent human life, including the life of the unborn. Unfortunately, we have a culture of death in our society today. And the irony is the generation that promoted unrestricted abortion for convenience sake now may be facing that same mentality as they reach their declining years, and the next generation decides that, or some government agency, some death panel under Obamacare decides that their life doesn't have the quality that's needed to continue expenditures for their care. Another important plank of the Clymer agenda would be to protect Second Amendment rights. Now, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the rights of the citizens to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. My question is, what is it about shall not be infringed that they don't understand? And don't give me this nonsense about a well-regulated militia, meaning that it's some police force or some army or something of that nature. If we were to put that in today's parlance, it would be something like this: a well-armed citizenry being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the citizens to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They understood that. Our framers understood that. This wasn't about hunting squirrels. This was, as Thomas Jefferson said, that the strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government. We would require a full audit of the Federal Reserve. Before calling for its complete abolition. Let me tell you, the money manipulators at the Fed work hand in glove with the warmongers in the Pentagon. And the only way we can return to sound money is to return to the gold standard and get rid of the Fed once and for all. Once again, I call upon Thomas Jefferson. He understood this, and he said he believes that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. He understood the power of being able to manipulate the money supply, the money system. We need to end the Fed once and for all. The other thing we need to do is to stop illegal immigration and block the automatic citizenship for children born in the U.S. of illegal aliens, so-called anchor babies. Now, I know what the 14th Amendment says, but it was never intended to work this kind of travesty that it's being used to justify this policy. No court no legislature, no Congress has ever made a determination that that's what the 14th Amendment says. The 14th Amendment clearly was designed to make sure citizenship and citizenship rights could not be denied freed slaves and their children that were born here. It was not intended to promote illegality. Congress can and must do something about that. The other thing, another plank would be to make English the official language of the United States. Now, I can talk a lot about what makes a country, but certainly what makes a country is borders, which you already touched on, culture, national pride, a common language, heritage, commonality of purpose, and so on. Commonality of defense. Those things define a country. And one of those important elements is having a commonality of language. This silliness of having to print ballots in different languages. In order to become a citizen, in order to vote, you have to be a citizen. In order to become a citizen, you have to read and write and understand the English language. So why should we have to have mandates from the federal government that you have to print ballots in other languages if they are required to read, write, and understand the English language in order to be a citizen? We need to stop unconstitutional wars. And I'm not talking about sometime in the future, I'm talking about now. Let's bring the troops home. I don't understand what's so difficult about following the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, gives Congress the power to declare war. We haven't had a declared war in this country since World War II. And that's because there's been more and more power aggregated in the executive branch with the President, and Congress has abdicated its responsibility to examine the facts to determine whether there's a real common defense need, and if so, to declare war. But by abdicating its responsibility and giving the power to the President, more or less a blank check, as they have done several times, to use whatever force you deem is necessary, is a recipe for disaster, and it has continued the permanent war status that this country has been in under the last several presidents. We need to stop Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action implemented under the United Nations that elevates nature above mankind. It elevates government control over personal liberty. It would promote the end of our national sovereignty. It would spell the end of ownership of private property. And it seeks to do away with the traditional family unit. And perhaps most important, it represents the abandonment of the unalienable rights that are enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and codified in our U.S. Constitution. That is a very dangerous proposal, and we need to get rid of it once and for all, get out of it, and not let these euphemisms like sustainable development, these good-sounding, feel-good terms that are taught even to our children in elementary school, to try to prepare them for this new world order under the UN. We need to restore Fourth Amendment protections. You know, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. We've become a nation under surveillance. The Patriot Act has abrogated the Fourth Amendment to a great degree, and it allows government operatives to come in and without the protections that are normally afforded to citizens to issue its own warrants, to engage in warrantless wiretaps, and blatantly violate the Fourth Amendment protections. We also believe that we need to adopt term limits for the U.S. House and Senate. I know there's some disagreement with this, but thank you. You know, our Congress was always intended to be a citizen Congress where the people come and serve for a period of time and then go back and live under the laws that they helped create. I think we'd have a lot less problem with the renegade Congress that we've been having if we somehow restored that sense. But they're not going to do it on their own because they love power. I mean, Dr. Paul is one of those few people, those very rare people, who did not get sucked into the power trip that goes with being a U.S. representative. So we need to return to the citizen Congress and get them back where they are. Let me just point out a couple of things quickly where I can tell you that the Clymer ticket is different than any other national ticket running this fall. And that is, first of all, in the life issue, we're also the only ones who take a firm stand for traditional marriage as being between one man and one woman, and take a firm stand on sealing our borders and bringing illegal immigration to a complete stop. Now, 236 years ago, 56 brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, pledging their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. And many of those 56 gave all three for the cause of liberty. I ask you, can we do less? We are here to give protection to the life of the child yet unborn, to give liberty to the parent, the property owner, the business owner, the worker, to every American that has been shackled by a train of abuses and usurpations by government that is out of control, to grant a new life of freedom to the masses enslaved by a government under the guise of helping them, and to teach those who are ignorant of the great freedom documents. Now's the time, the place is here, and we are the soldiers in this new battle for freedom. Let me close with a quote from Samuel Adams, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, where he said, if ye love liberty, if you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that ye were our country. Thank you.